Hello, 8. Crazy 8. That's what I call you guys, the crazy 8s. The 8 VQs. The 8 VQs are not really crazy. Actually, they are, but they aren't. That's the whole thing about it. In fact, the way I look at the 8s is infinity. It's not an 8, it's infinity. And that's the craziness. An 8 can go into infinity over things when they're not in control of it, when they don't feel like they're in control of it. But the 8s are like one of the most dedicated, most professional, most incredibly seriously there for you lovers when you have an 8 in love with you. When you have an 8 in love with you, they wrap themselves around you and they really rotate around themselves, then you, themselves, then you, themselves, then you, and they get you into that kind of like energetic field. So the 8s are incredibly dedicated. They're very loyal. We'll talk about this. And I would say that once they let their guard down and they decide that this is the right situation, they have a great time. It can be a lot of fun. But the 8 VQs actually are going through a lot of transformation. As long as this video is up, I'm recording this video in 2014. Who knows how long it will stay out there in the world. But until about 2022, the 8 VQs are learning how to love differently. And that's partially because, in my experience with them as clients, the 8 VQs have issues with control issues. And the issue is feeling in control of yourself, trying to be in control of your own emotions on the inside. And so in an effort to control your feelings on the inside, the 8 VQs have often been controlling in relationships on the outside. Or the flip of that, where you surrendered control and you learn control by being controlled. So it can go either way, really. God can teach by being the bad guy or being the good guy. Doesn't matter. The issue with the 8 VQs is control. So with the maturity mark of an 8 VQ is, do you feel in control of your life? And that comes down to you deciding that you feel in control of your life. So when you can feel in control of your own life, then enter into a love relationship. Until then, if you are looking for someone to help you in life or looking for that perfect partner or whatnot, in order to feel strong and feel in control of your life, or if you're waiting to feel like an adult until you're in a relationship, you've not reached the 8 mature mark of the 8 VQ. So you must feel like you have made it and you are successful before you get into a love relationship. Otherwise, accept what you are, right? Now, if you do feel successful and you're ready for love, well then it's time to move forward and you are ready to get into the love business. And in that case, love is kind of a business. What 8s chase after is stability, long-term investment, loyalty. 8 VQs are looking for a lifetime partner, and they're willing to wait until everything checks out. 8 VQs ultimately have some trust issues, mostly with trusting themselves in the moment. And once they do trust themselves, then they can enter into intimacy like no other. Like, boy, can they be crazy dedicated. And in some cases, that's the problem with the 8 VQs, is that you are not dedicated to yourself and your own heart first. And so you dedicate yourself to others, and then you get yourself locked into a slave situation. So the 8 VQs can get kind of locked up. The 8 VQs are therefore chasing after, usually, the 8 VQs are funny because they actually are very business oriented. The 8 VQs are often chasing after 2s, and that's because an 8 VQ plus a 2 makes a 10, which is manifestation and abundance. So 8 VQs tend to be attracted to partners that bring them wealth, power, or some sort of access to something. The focus of an 8 VQ is security and stability and longevity and getting on top. So it's funny. I think sexually, I wonder if the 8 VQs get on top. That'd be a good question to ask the ladies. Like, do you like to get on top if you're an 8 VQ? I'm just curious. But it is that goat Capricorn energy, right, in Venus, which to some degree you would say isn't too sexy. But with the 8 VQs, the sexiness really is what's not being seen. The sexiness for the 8 VQs is what's hidden. And I think the trick to being sexy as an 8 VQ is to know your assets and to tease us men with it, and you can have men have VQs also, but I'm talking to women here. So the emotional personality for an 8 VQ is very reserved. An 8 VQ, it will not let you know how you feel about her, not let you know exactly where you stand for a very long time. I would say an 8 VQ is slow to trust, and an 8 VQ's personality is usually very warm and loving once you get past that security check or whatever. So the defensiveness of an 8VQ is the highest, I'd say, of all the Venus. Next to 0VQ, 8VQ is the highest. They're very defensive to the point where it can take a long time to even get in front of an 8VQ. I know a lot of male clients who cannot get in front of 8VQ women to save their life. And a lot of times 8VQ send off a message of unavailable, and that's part of their defensiveness. So I would say 8VQs are overly defensive, and that's something I work with in gavenus.com, is the overly defensiveness that happens with the 8VQs, and therefore talking themselves out of love, talking themselves out of the possibilities because of that over defensiveness. The likeliness to commit for an 8VQ is like 100%. I think the issues I have with my 8VQ clients is that they are overly committed. They commit too soon. They commit without doing a background check. They commit without asking their heart. And that's one of the big things, is really 8VQs allow control to control them instead of their heart to control them. Because I think if you let your heart be in control, you feel out of control. But that's the nature of love. Love feels out of control. And that's one of the issues 8VQs have, is that when you're really in a good situation, you don't feel in control. And that's counterintuitive to the 8VQs. So this is one of the things they're getting over. In bed, the 8VQs are actually, really, they want to be the center of attention, frankly. And once they are, they're like, I would say, goddesses in the female sense. And, you know, in the male sense, I would imagine kings. At the end of the day, it's a very loving, love-making, and so the whole issue is it really comes down to the personality of the 8VQ and what their sun sign is. But once you're in that environment, it's a very love-making situation, very sacred situation. 8VQs do not just jump into a situation, and then once they do, I think they let their hair down in a very romantic, old-school sense. So in bed, they're lovers in the truest sense, but you wouldn't know it on the outside looking in. Now, if you have 8 in your master number, in the VQ algorithm, if you have 8 in your master number, then you are an indecisive person, and you are indecisive about what your heart wants, and this means you must master your own control over your heart. And this must mean that you either over-controlling to your heart or under-controlling to your heart, or a variety of those ways. And so you have a tendency, until you find mastery over your own heart and you get past that maturity mark, there's a tendency to, instead of fixing yourself, wanting to control others. So the negative 8VQs can be very controlling, very domineering, very negative in relationships until they feel in control of their life. And if you have 8 in the master spot, that's true too. No matter what your Venus is, if you have 8 in the first master spot, you have an issue with control in love, and you have to get past that, control yourself. Now, if you have 8 in the second position, which is the proficiency position, in that particular case, it depends. In the 18 mark, this is actually needing to make a decision in love before you act. So this is holding yourself back. So an 18 quotient, no matter what your Venus is, an 18 quotient would be that you have to decide and hold yourself back before you jump. And then when you do decide and be certain that this is correct, then you act. In a 28, it's somewhat similar, where your passion is flowing because you're a 20 and you're in your master shui 20s. And the 8 says you have to decide where the feeling limits are ahead of time before you act. And then once you do decide and act, in a 28 situation, you become, that's a master number, and so you end up being a master manifester in that particular case. So in either case, in all the 8s, you have to control and decide ahead of time going in, so you can let go of control once you are in. That's the secret to the 8s, is that you decide ahead and then you let go once you jump. All right? Now, for those of you who signed up with GA Venus, and I watch over you, the 8VQs are ladies that we start with really identifying where you have fears, and then we see where control issues are. Once we see your control issues, we help you feel in control of those issues, so you don't bring those control issues to the bedroom or to the love life. That's the whole issue. So the whole issue with the 8VQs is taking real control of your own heart, and therefore not being controlling and allowing yourself to go on a ride, an exciting ride in actual love. All right, thanks for clicking. So